Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that'll have plot synopsis and character bios for these issues. So we are going to be covering today, picking up where we left off. We're going to be doing Iron Man 180, 181, and 182 from 1983. Now, this is a video I have posted before. However, I'm re-editing it just a little bit here, so I cut some things and added a new introduction and things like that. So here we go. So you see here the ring, so you know who this is, the Mandarin. So we're going to have the Mandarin here picking up as the enemy. Come, my oldest enemy. Come to my place of vengeance. So we're essentially going to have the same creative team of Denny O'Neil, Luke McDonell, and Steve Mitchell. So I will probably, at the time I recorded this, I had skipped around a bunch of issues. I have since gone back and filled in that stuff. I do have a playlist. So if I say something and you're like, no, Jose, you have covered that. Well, if I said I didn't cover it at that time, it's because at that time I hadn't covered it. But I'm trying to piece together some of the stuff. So when you hear, you know, it is you are going to hear the original video and then this part here. So hopefully it goes well. Anyway, here we go. It's been a really good story overall. Again, nothing against Luke McDonald, but his art is, what can I say? It's like a jobber. You know, he's in there, he does the job, but you know, he's no Jim Lee, he's no Todd McFarlane, no Joe Quesada. You know, but he does solid storytelling, which is what we're gonna go with here. So we are, like I said, we already covered Jim Rhodes becoming Iron Man. So now we are going to, like I said, forward it 10 issues. So in the previous issue, which we did not cover, the Mandarin had sent the radioactive man to get him a equipment that he needed, but Iron Man interfered. So he is going to make him suffer and uses one of his rings to cause him pain and another, you know. And I love this, the year of the rabbit. So, but he says that there's perhaps an opportunity for revenge. When he calls the American, he always means Iron Man, who is his nemesis. So, if the plan works, the radioactive man gets to live, but if the plan does not, he will die. And he says, interestingly. Meanwhile, Jim Rhodes has been in pain, and he is in Hong Kong. He's having acupuncture, some Eastern medicine to see if they can, relieve the pain. He's been suffering through that pain, or suffering pain, being Iron Man. And now we are with Tony Stark. So this is Tony. So you can see here, he does not look very well. He's been living in the streets, has a beard. He's trying to get to see if there's still an apartment that he owns, but the story's been the same. He's out, everything. And so he's been seeing this other homeless woman, Gretel, I believe is her name. And, he had promised she's pregnant and she's going to be delivering soon. And she just wants to have the baby at, not, like I said, a Bowery. And so she feels like she's been lied to, like all the other men in her life. And she storms off. And this guy here, happy holidays, brother. So Jim Rhodes has gotten out. He's carrying the armor here because back then he still needed a suitcase to carry the armor. It's not like like in the movies or anything at this time where he can just summon it. So he does the touristy thing. This flight leaves the next day. He says he's earned some rest and relaxation, and then sees the Mandarin creating like an illusion of Iron Man because he knows or he believes that he is in Hong Kong. And Rhodes sees it and then goes to change. I like this part. Not exactly a phone booth, meaning Superman, because in the 50s he changed in phone booths. And he puts on the armor and goes. And of course, the Mandarin sees him. So, ready to fight. So, Iron Man is going to go after the Mandarin and is going into China. And there are some missiles. And by the way, he's also running out of power because he hasn't been able to charge the armor properly. And so he's trying to lose them. The suit is overheating and thinking, what would Tony do? And then Tony is in a soup kitchen. He has like I said, no food, no money. And then he asks about Gretel. They said they haven't seen her, but hopes she found a warm place because New York's about to get the worst blizzard in 40 years by morning. And of course, it is during Christmas time. And we're back to Iron Man. He goes underwater to cool off the armor. And then after the armor is cool, he goes back up. And then the illusion still appears. It wants him to follow him, so he does. He knows it's a trap, and it's heading toward that mountain, he says. So, inside, Mandarin's going to prepare. Here comes a radioactive man to do something, but he's unable to strike. Mandarin looks at him, and it's because he's under control of whatever ring this is. He orders him to hit himself, and then to break his thumb, and then to go and meditate on the lesson he's learned. And time to head there. So the hologram disappears and sees that this is the projector, and suddenly he's being pulled by this tractor beam, and then he destroys it to make sure, and basically is going to rip his way in. The art is not, I shouldn't say it. The art is not terrible. Like I said, it's serviceable. It's just that when you see certain other artists, or when you look at it through modern lens, it does seem, very outdated. But it's when you're reading this and you're watching this for a while, it really isn't as terrible. So I shouldn't be as critical. So, like I said, he's serviceable. So we see the lair of the Mandarin. And he recognizes who he is, but he senses he's acting a little different because he really doesn't know what he's talking about. So gives him a big jolt, like an energy beam, and he fires back with his repulsor rays. but they do nothing because he's wearing a shield. But that shield allows, it's a one-way shield, so it doesn't allow anything to hit him, but it does allow him to send things out. And so he improvises. It's a good, solid fight. So he he realizes, that Mandarin is pretty clever. So when he blinded him, he actually ended up creating a another hologram and was behind him and keeps hitting him. So things aren't going well. So he's going to escape. He's like, live to fight another day. But he uses one of his other rings to basically grab him and beat him, essentially. And he's hypnotized or under his control, kind of like the other guy is. Takes off his helmet. He's surprised he's black. He always thought it was Tony Stark, but he doesn't know who Rhodey is. But he thinks it's the original Iron Man, so he doesn't know any better. And he's going to tell him his master plan as he wants him to kill himself. He's gonna destroy all the rice in China, forcing them to invade other countries so that they will not starve. He's gonna use that opportunity to seize control of China and then take over the world. In the meantime, he orders Rhodey to take his life and cut his own throat, which now leads us to 181. And I love this. Whatever you say, boss. This was one of my early Iron Man issues that my grandfather had brought me. So this, I must have read this issue so many times as a kid. So we essentially pick up right where we left off. He wants him to slit his own throat. But that headache that he's been suffering, I really like this. That little tear allows him to get out, and he ends up cutting the Mandarin and pushes him away and just makes a run for it before the Mandarin can recover. So he gets away. And just ponders how the heck is he gonna beat him with those rings on and stop him before he declares war. Kind of goes over the plan again to make himself emperor. Radioactive Man asks, what about Iron Man? And then blames him for Iron Man cutting him. He's like, you never told me to guard him. So in the meantime, Tony is continuing to look for Gretel, and nobody's seen her, and that storm is coming. Yeah. The next issue you will it's the next issue is going to be a little bit sad. So here's Gretel. And they're like, she says her stomach hurts, and she's like, well, maybe the baby's coming. She's like, he's not due for another one. And she asks for another drink, and, nobody stops her from getting the drink, unfortunately. And so he asks about Tony Stark's, and she's like, he said he loved me, but I don't think he meant it. And he's didn't go in there, but here she was, and here he is. In the meantime, the Mandarin's ready to begin his plan. Iron Man comes out, just says, he can't handle it. He's just going to go away. But then he notices something's happening, and the field's turning to black. Mandarin's like, within hours, the field will be a wasteland. And so here comes these jets who now think Iron Man's responsible for this. He's trying to tell them that it's not him, but it's not. They shoot at him, and so he runs away. And they call it in, and they think that the Americans are responsible for this because it's not a coincidence that this happened right after. And Mandarin hears and about this through, probably he has bugs, and so he's like, wow, this is working even better. He expected a small war, not a total global. And so Iron Man's still trying to dodge them, but he's like, maybe you should send him over here. And so they all follow him, and they throw these rockets. He's grabbed by the tractor beam that he knew was there, but so are the rockets. And he's going to try to reverse it. He uses his repulsor race to short them out, gets out of the way, and lets the rockets take care of that ray. And so he is going to see if they can continue bombing that mountain, which they do. And he uses his repulsors to create a hole to go in here. And he's now surrounded by a force field, so he can't quite get in there. And the radioactive man turns off the monitor so that Mandarin can't see what's happening. He questions it, and then he's like, perhaps the bomberman loosened the wire. And so Iron Man flies here. Since Iron Man can't proceed any further, he's going to just destroy this machine. And this machine, of course, is what was controlling everything. And he's just going to rip everything to shred. Causes this part of the mountain to crumble. Mandarin is like, my plan is ruined. And I love this part. The world is denied the benefit of the Mandarin rule. And he goes into his ship, and he's going to get away. Iron Man's, like I said, he was suffering from headaches. And he's like, man, I should just let him go. But he's like, I'm Iron Man. So he's going to go. Iron Man hits him. His head is hurting, and he falls. Now, I really, truly do like this, going through all the panels. This is very creative. So, and again, another thing, and I mentioned it on the last video, I like him drawing outside of the panel. He has done that quite a few times. So there is stuff to like that he does. So the Mandarin gets away, and the Chinese are after him, and so he flees back to Hong Kong. By the way, Hong Kong was under British rule during this time. And the next day, he's back at JFK. So at JFK, he calls Morley Irwin to let him know that he's arrived. Morley tells him there's something going on in Central Park, some strange reading. Maybe Iron Man should check it out. He says, okay, and sees this and goes in and disappears. Of course, this has to do with Secret Wars, so I have a video on that, so go check it out. I have all 12 issues, so this is how Iron Man gets into Battle World. So we're going to go to the conclusion. We were just going to do these 3 issues here. And we're now going to end at Iron Man 182. This is from 1984. And look at this sobering cover. I have to tell you, the writing is spot on with Denny O'Neil. The humanity that he brings into this is really, really good. So, same art team again. So, Tony Stark is looking for Gretel. They're telling him, hey, You should really get, someplace safe. And he just keeps saying Gretel, 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 and yells for her. And he's going to have a drink, but it's empty. He's flat broke, so he goes in there and sells his coat. It's going to be freezing cold. There's a storm. And they're like, what will you give me for this? And he says, $10. And he gives it to him. And they said, hey, go get a room. You could probably get a room for $10 at that time in certain unsavory parts of the city. And he's walking. They're like, going in, and look at that, $5. And he's like, nope. He's going to go buy liquor, the whole $10. He's essentially decided to give up. He is going to die. Tony Stark has hit rock bottom. And he's like, I don't feel anything, and just is going to basically drink himself until he's dead. And he doesn't care that he's about to die. And somebody calls him out. It's, of course, Gretel. She's about to have the baby. And he's going to try to get her out of the wind. He offers her a drink. And she decides for once in her life she won't drink. She doesn't want her baby to be affected. And tells Tony to drink it. And they're trying to keep themselves warm. And he thinks about him, how he was Iron Man at one time. And this is a great splash page here. So this run, doesn't get the praise that Demon in the Bottle does with David Michelini and Bob Layton. But I wanted to share because I thought this is one of Marvel's strongest things, and I bet you that if this would have been done the way that Daredevil was done with Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli on Born Again, it would get more praise. But because it's a rather unknown artist, this doesn't get any love. But I think this is up there with Born Again. And so she's in pain, the baby's coming, and he delivers the baby, and it's a baby boy. She asks Tony to take care of him, and then she dies. And he, of course, says, you beat me to it. It's super touching. I mean, this is extremely touching. Again, if it would have been done, say, by John... Imagine if this would have been done by John Byrne or something like that. People would be all over this. I think this is extremely touching. So, but he tells the baby he won't die. And just sit there, and of course you're going, oh my god, that baby's dead. The mom is dead, and Tony uses his own body to warm this. Cops find him the next day, and they're like, oh my god, the baby is still breathing, and poor thing hasn't eaten nothing. And at the hospital they're like, the baby's gonna make it, and they're talking about Tony, and Tony maybe has a 50-50 chance, and the mom died. Here they're burying her, and of course, no compassion, because that's how we are. He's just saying, without knowing the story, they're like, just a drunk, who cares? And we as a species, we need to learn how to be more compassionate. So I think that did a very good job. So the heroes are now returning after the Secret Wars, which, by the way, had not come out during this time. It was upcoming. And Iron Man has some gadgets that he got during the Secret Wars. He wants to test them out. That hill there was going to be demolished to make way for a road. So he decides, hey, let's try it, save the taxpayers some money. And he ends up completely leveling it. He's like, oh my goodness, this is too strong. So he's going to go talk to Morley Irwin. And he's like, well, I don't know. We should get Tony, but he's in the hospital. He's like, what? And so he goes to the hospital. He's demanding to see him. He asks how she is. She's just kind of, this is a very good panel, how she shrugs her shoulders. And Rhodey is happy to have found him. Tells him, thinks, these are all thinking, and that it's, his best friend. He comes to, Tony decides he's going to get sober and get his life back together. And, that saving that baby brought that back into him and gives him a water. And so he's going to go get help. Rhodey asks if he wants the suit, meaning the armor. He says, not yet. I don't, tells him to get some rest. And then now some week is finally, and Tony Stark has been released, and he is going to start to claw his way back. So, I recommend this series. It's very inexpensive. You can get single issues for not very much. You can probably get almost this entire series for probably $10 on eBay if somebody really. But I really, really, really recommend this run by Denny O'Neil. Like I said, this goes on. I mentioned in the previous video that Denny O'Neil's run continues for quite a while. So hopefully I'll get to do a couple of the issues leading up to his new armor on issue 200 as he makes his way versus Obadiah Stane, who is responsible for all this. So like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.